Okay, alrighty. So, I don't actually have another full patch ready for Storm the Castle. I just have been having lots of ideas about stuff regarding the game in general, and I just wanted to make sure I had them all recorded somewhere so that I could check back on them later. So, first thing, just entirely unrelated to the rule system, but very much so directly tied to the campaign itself. I have been we did the whole merits and flaws things. I've been pretty happy with them. I do feel like characters have started to like come into their own with having personalities. Big fan of that. But I still feel like something is kind of still missing. Like something still doesn't really feel right. And I definitely think that it is the motivations. And I was watching this Matt Colville video where he was talking about motivation and the like difference between wants and needs, and I realized that all my all the advice and stuff I've consumed regarding how to get people to to have their characters make sense to go along with the story. You need to motivate them to want to, well, in this circumstance at least, have them all want to get rid of this big bad evil guy. You know, they all will have like a common enemy. And all the advice I've ever consumed has always suggested you create these NPCs and you create these locations and then have these be things that help the players, and then hopefully the players will care about them. And then when the BBG runs around and destroys all these things and takes them away, then it will both serve to make the BBEG seem powerful in that he can do that kind of stuff, and it'll make the players want to kill him because they'll, all these NPCs that they care about have just been killed by him or whoever. So they will want revenge. And so I kept trying that, and it never really worked. And I realized after watching this Matt Colville motivation video that there is once can sort of just be ignored. Like a player can have, or a character can have once, but a want is never more important than your survival. Your survival is a need. Like food and water, that's like a need. Just being comfortable, that's a want. And I realized I needed to change some stuff plot wise to turn these wants into needs. Right now, the only character I can think of in the campaign that really has a need to stop the corpse weaver is Cletus, who now has a hold, and his whole family is living in this realm. And if the corpse weaver succeeds and just starts killing everyone in the realm and making them into zombies, then Cletus is gonna have his whole family get killed, and he cannot allow that to happen. So he's one of the only player that has a direct need to stop this BBG. Whereas now, Adrian and Humdu, they both have things that they care about. Adrian, his wife, and Humdu, the monastery. But neither of those things that they care about in any way, like, care if the corpse weaver is around. And so I've been feeling this sort of cognitive dissonance in that all my players have been playing along, in that they know that they've come here for D&D and that they're gonna all get together and go on a quest, and ostensibly this quest is going to in some way have some effect on the central tension, which is in this case like, will the corpse weaver succeed? uh, but like Adrian and Humdu, they don't really have any reason to be here. Like, I do think if they were to be the most true to their character as possible, they would just leave. Like, they wouldn't sacrifice their lives just to like hang out with this other guy that does have this problem. And but like after realizing this like wants and needs situation, I know how it could be so easy to turn both of these things that they care about into needs, and that like to put them in a position where, hey, now you need to stop the corpse weaver or else he is going to take away these things that you care about. um, so that's great, that's fine, I can work with all of that. But I realized like the other players, the Bremril, the Meng, the Nimbus, they, at least if they do have the thing that they care about, it has not become explicitly clear in the narrative so far. So I think I'm really gonna have to try to find out what it is that like they really want, the things that they care about, even if it's just making as much money as possible. That's something that I can turn into a, hey, if you work together with everyone else to stop this guy, then you will see your need be taken care of. uh, so that's what I had to say about that. I guess the other thing is that I think I was at one point of the mindset that I thought that this kind of a thing was a player's job. Uh, but there's this like clip of like Brennan Lee Mulligan where he compares players and their actions to running water, in that in order to maximize this verisimilitude, in order to maximize this suspension of disbelief, these characters need to act as true and as efficiently as possible. Like, they have a problem and they are going to do whatever it takes to solve that problem. They are going to take the path of least resistance every time. And and like that is like the fun of D&D, is the fact that like you have these characters that act as true as possible. Like they don't make things harder for themselves just for the sake of drama. They will do everything in such a way to succeed their goal. Uh, and so like that's great. And I've realized like my job as a DM is I've got to create those reasons why they like really like have to do this stuff, rather than just like have this cognitive dissonance situation sort of linger where they're just like sort of just hanging out for no reason. And another thing that I realized I made a mistake like a long while back ago was I set up this situation that the corpse weaver was upset at these players because they killed his apprentice, so he would now track them down and hunt them down and kill them. Which, cool, is like a neat reason for there to be some like conflict between the players and this BBG, but it doesn't lend itself, that conflict doesn't lend itself well to the type of tone and the type of story and the type of game I was trying to make. Because if I could do that where they're trying to hunt them down and they're being tracked down and whatnot, and like the response to that, to being hunted down, is you leave, you run away, or you escape, or you hide, or you do any of those things. Which, if I was telling a story where they ran around and went to a new location every week and went to a new fantastical city to meet with these different guys and learn a thing and then do maybe some sort of monster of the week type quest, and or maybe do more of like a Lord of the Rings, you have to run away and hide from the Nazgul, that would have worked. But I was doing pretty much the complete opposite, and the more of a, I want all these people to be in the same location. One, just for practical reasons, because there's constantly new players jumping in and out of the game, dropping in and out. And if half the players are on this side of the continent and the other half of the players are on the other side of the continent, then that pretty much restricts what combination of players they can, have a session with. So, like, it was pretty much necessary that I had them all be in the same area. And I like also just game play style wise, rather than there just being like neat things that you're seeing, I wanted to more so go into the angle of like you learn about these people and these locations, and like you really get to figure out their like motivations, and you get caught up in this web of intrigue as you try to play them off of each other, which I do think I finally like kicked in last session, which I'm very happy about. uh um yeah, so the being hunted down did not really work for that. And I realized like the more of that sort of Game of Thrones type of setup, where there is this like existential threat that is building up, and it is a clicking or ticking down clock that is going to force everyone else to come to some sort of a decision or all die as they fight against each other. I definitely think I should have more so leaned into that angle, even though I did like have it as sort of just a thing in the background. Okay, but motivations. Yeah, I think, well, once I really get those down and figure that out for everyone, we're going to be having a lot smoother of sessions, and there's not going to be this sort of question of like, why am I even here? But yeah, now I think I know the exact direct steps I want to take towards solving that problem, which is not something I'd ever like put into words before. Anyway, just some other thoughts that I now had about the rules. So I wanted to make this change. I wanted to have everyone get a feature at level 1, so that you could just start off when you make your character. He's like a neat, unique thing, and your level 1 fighter is different from everyone else's level 1 fighter. I realized the problem, though, is that the like level 1 fighter with the I know magic feat and the level 1 mage with the I know a fighter thing, like the fighter with the magic feat just so entirely outclasses the mage in every single way. Because you can have this fighter that just knows like some number of first level spells equivalently or effectively, or you can have this mage who, knows basically that same number of first level spells due to the nature of my system, and then their one feat can be like, oh, well, you either know how to use swords, or you know how to use shields, or you come close to maybe having as much health as a fighter, or maybe you just get the fighting style. Just any of these things that would make for like, oh, in essence the exact same character and what they're like capable of doing, except one is just the in every way better version of the other character. Which I guess on the one hand, the old quadratic wizards, linear fighters, like yeah, the mage is gonna suck, but when they level up, they're finally going to have one over on the fighter. Which, fair enough. But I came up with I think, a better solution to this problem, and also one that will make once I start throwing around spheres and mana to like everyone, this will really make mages feel like they are the ones that are like the expert in this kind of playstyle. And that's by for everyone else, when they try to cast a spell, they are going to expend the mana whether or not they pass or fail. And the mage, their like new level 1 class feature is just going to be like when you cast a spell, you don't lose mana if you fail to cast the spell. So that's what I got for that. The trauma, I've like really not done a lot of overhauling yet, because I am now sort of realizing as I looked back at the features that I did have connected to the trauma system, it might make it a little bit more difficult to do the thing that I had initially, or that I had since thought about with the different damage types causing, or different entities or effects that cause trauma to cause you to gain a different like flaw upon reaching your threshold. So I think this one's going to require some more thinking. Downtime. I've been slogging through trying to give every single downtime some like complications and developments. I've got about like halfway through the list, and I've thought about, I think I'm just gonna like remove income as a activity, because it's a little lame. So you just sit there. I guess I could have it as the no risk downtime, where you like, if you want to play it safe and you don't want to have a complication or whatever. But I don't know. Just I don't think I want to include the thing that just has no interesting merit to it at all. That doesn't seem very fun. But I do think I want to add like hunting and gathering as a means of like gathering or acquiring like potion supplies, poison supplies, maybe ingredients for magic items, stuff like that. I think that could be very fun. And I also I got rid of like religious service from Xanathar's Guide, because it all just kind of said like, oh, you gain a favor, which was like a neat idea. You hang out in the church and do some church stuff, and they say, okay, we'll help you out. But it was so like incredibly vague that I don't think it. There was just a danger of it either becoming like overpowered, where if you accidentally let someone do too good with something too like meaningful and impactful with their church favor, then the only thing anyone is ever going to want to do is get a million favors with the church. Or you make the like church favor like so inconsequential that like people never ever bother with the church service again. Like you could, I'm not saying the sweet spot is impossible to hit there, but it seems really difficult compared to at least how every other downtime was designed to be explicitly clear with the results. So, but now that I've got reputation, I think that's just gonna be easy. Like you just earn reputation within the church, and then once you earn enough reputation with the church, you can spend it all. You can cash it in for like an explicit neat thing that can happen. Maybe this might be my way that I will like, depending on how much I really make Raise Dead cost, this will probably be kind of the like backup method of being able to like raise dead. Is like you just do a lot of cool stuff for the church. Okay, the short rest. I didn't really get any pushback or complaining on this. I think it pretty much went the way I wanted to. It was a lot faster. It skipped over an uninteresting roll, and it accomplished the goal of giving everyone approximately how much HP I wanted everyone to get from a short rest. Okay, so deflection. So last session, I introduced the deflection rating mechanic. I think for the barbarian, it worked pretty well. It was originally if you're a barbarian, you don't really ever make any interesting or meaningful choices in combat. More often than not, you just walk up to stuff and you hit it a lot until it dies, which I think I can do better than that. So I do think deflection rating, now you get a little bit of a push your luck kind of game, a little bit of a, do I think my rage is gonna run out, or should I just start spending these deflections like right now that while I know that I have access to them? Do I think there's going to be a really big attack that's going to come up to me and hit me and for a lot of damage really soon? Because then I might just hold on to it and save it for that attack. Or is also possibly the question of like, do I think my healer is still going to be alive to be able to give me some of my hit points back, or do I want to use my deflection right now just in case that they aren't around later to like heal me at that point? So I don't think it's a horribly nuanced, like complicated idea that's gonna leave people stumped for any number of minutes to think whether or not they should deflect something. But I think it's a little bit more of like a resource management you get to play as the barbarian, whereas you otherwise, at least mid combat, you don't really have any resources of any kind to like keep track of or consider, should I spend it right now. So for the players, I think deflection worked out pretty good. For the monsters, as soon as I got into the situation where it was like, as soon as someone went hit and I was going to be like, oh, the monster uses their deflection, I realized like, that is going to be horribly unsatisfying. Because there is this general idea in games, you want to have stuff that fails forward. There's a very common idea in RPG design. It's like every new DM has gotten into that circumstance of the player saying, I want to climb up this wall. DM says, cool, make an athletics check. The player fails. They like look to their left and to their right. Nothing happens. They don't see anything. They just don't climb up this wall. And then they just say like, okay, I guess I will roll again and try to climb up this wall again. And if you don't have like failure mean anything, if like failure doesn't contribute towards some sort of development, then, and if failure just equals nothing happens, not very interesting. It's much more fun for failure to mean like something bad happens. Anyway, this was the like opposite of that, in that success meant nothing happens. This wasn't fail backwards. This was succeed backwards. Like this was it would like just to roll to hit to see you got a big good old number, and then to roll your damage, and then to hear, actually no, it doesn't matter what you rolled, you don't do any damage anyway. Like, I guess there is the perspective of, haha, I got through one of their deflections, now they only have 3 left. But it just felt like that would not be a fun feeling to have as a player, to hear that your damage is actually 0. But monsters still need, if I'm not using damage reduction and if I'm not using the deflection, they need to get some sort of benefit from being tanky and wearing heavy armor and stuff. So I think they're just going to have more HP. And so just because at least you can feel satisfied knowing like I'm chipping away and like accomplishing something with my hits and my damage by bringing this guy lower and closer to dead. Possible problem of, oh, well, this is going to contribute to HP bloat, a problem that has already gotten pretty bad and is one of the main criticisms of like D&D in general, which I could see that. I think a bit later on I've got what I hope to be like a proper solution to HP bloat. Okay, so another change, reputation. I didn't even touch on it last session because I figured there was already enough going on with the merits that I didn't want to just stack on a million differences all in one session. I was going to just slowly add the changes to the system one by one. So I do think reputation is going to be the one that I like really like introduce and have be meaningful next session. So reputation, instead of it just being good, bad, unfavorable, favorable, hated, trusted, I've decided to instead introduce some more like nuance into that system. So now it's just gonna be like a -10 to +10. And then like minus, if you're at like a -10, a -9, -8, that means you are hated by that person and they treat you in such a way. Then all the way to the other side, if you have got an 8, a 9, or a 10, then they trust you. But this way you can earn like different amounts of reputation from varying degrees of like how meaningful of an action you are taking to assist this person. So that back when there were only 3 levels, there was, it was hard to say like, well, does helping someone just a little bit, does that like that almost gains you the same amount of reputation as like saving their saving someone's next like day versus their next 2 weeks or something was like the equivalent amount of reputation gain, whereas now it's like, okay, I can actually have a difference for like super minor help and like only relatively minor help. So reputation, I've got high hopes for that one too. Okay, reworking the death penalty. So this is one that I probably should have done a while ago because so originally how death worked is if you died, you would lose half of your XP, which is pretty severe. But this is back when I was more so expecting or like hoping or planning for a campaign of groups, and there being high level groups and there being low level groups, and then if you're at level 8 and you die and you get knocked down to level 4, well, hey, guess what, you're going to be playing with the low level group for a while. And if they're like level 2 or level 3, then as a level 4 champ or like player, your character, you're going to be like the champion compared to all of them. So I figured like, also I was kind of expecting or planning for like like just a continual type of cycle of people leveling up their characters and then them dying, and then they go back down and they start with this other group and they build a new character back up, and I didn't really have like an end in mind. But I do think now, if I do try to make this into a forever continual type of campaign, I think like I will make it like a seasons thing, kind of like when you have seasons in competitive games like Overwatch or whatever, that like just when the new season starts, when the last campaign arc has ended, everyone will just start again at level 1 and we'll start from the top. Which I think that'll probably be more realistic for what I have like access to anyway, and I think it'll fit both for if I do ever manage to get a big old group versus if I just have a small group. I think that that'll fit for both types, that sort of season approach to the campaign. Anyway, so yeah, XP used to be you lose half your XP, which pretty brutal. If you had got played like 20 sessions, like level 8, level 9, then to lose half of that and drop all the way down to level 4, level 5, I could understand that that would incur some extreme saltiness to effectively be told, like, yeah, you might as well have not bothered showing up to the last 10 sessions because all that XP is just going out the window. Which, if that happened and like someone like quit the campaign, I wouldn't even blame them, honestly. They were told, like, yeah, every like 10 sessions, if you happen to die like every 10 sessions, you're gonna be making like backwards progress at that point. Um, by just and that's, I don't even think it's entirely out of the realm of possibility that someone does die every 10 sessions. Like, I think you sort of have to get kind of unlucky for that to happen to you, but I don't think it's impossible at all. Uh, so if someone lived through that and experienced that and then said, like, yeah, I do not want to live in the kind of play in the kind of game where that's a possibility and a thing I can suffer through. Fair enough. So I've decided instead, all right. Also, because of that, I've been pretty much terrified to ever kill anyone because I was like, yeah, if someone just loses like half their progress. Like, imagine you played Elden Ring and you got 80% of the way, or 80 hours in, and then at some point, like, you die and they're just like, all right, yeah, you're back at the 40-hour mark. Like, I wouldn't blame anyone who just says, like, yeah, I'm not playing that game again. Like, I'm installing. Uh, but on the other hand, there does have to be a penalty for dying. And, like, not only does there have to be a penalty, it has got to be the greatest of penalties. There's got to be uh, like, people should be truly like fearing for their lives. They should do everything and anything they possibly can to avoid the what it is that, like, to avoid death, which um so it's got to be severe. It's got to be something that people will do anything they possibly can to avoid. So I've decided, you know what? Instead of lose half your XP, instead it'll just be an amount of XP equal to your level times 2. So that even if you are like level 7, and then you die and you have to make a new character, at least, like, in this way, it is impossible to ever lose more than a single level. Like, at absolute worst, you can only ever lose one level. And depending on if you're close to getting to the next level when it happens, it's entirely possible that you won't actually lose a single level at all. Also, I think, well, both of these systems, I think, both reinforce the idea that, like, the more time and the more you get connected to a character, the more, even more so, you shouldn't want to let them die because now you're going to be losing even more worth of XP. But I do think, like, yeah, just losing at absolute worst one level, that's like the equivalent of losing like 2 to 3 sessions worth, which definitely is a complete feels bad, a complete upsetty spaghetti emotional reaction inducing type of thing. But I don't think it is like a quit the whole campaign worthy of like egregious offense that could occur. Because like 2 to 3 sessions, you can make that up. That is like a possible like you can come back from that compared to like everyone else. It's not like it's going to be something you want to avoid, but it's not going to like completely make all the sessions you've come to like worthless. So yeah, I do hope that from now on, like now that I'm changing the rules, I don't think I'm going to be nearly as afraid of letting people die, which is another thing that I've been extraordinarily like pulling back on the reins challenge wise. Because I was like, oh, I just really do not want people to die. But I've got that philosophy of like no fudging because I don't want I want everything to feel earned, but so far everything that's just been earned has been combats that have been like super low CR compared to what the players should be able to handle because I've been so terrified of killing someone. But you know what? I think Grim Reaper's coming out. Someone's gonna die soon, and now you're not going to get just absolutely because also like dying yeah, like it also just sucks because it's like, all right, well, now I'm losing my magic items, I'm losing my treasure and all this stuff that I've developed. Like you're already losing all of that stuff, um, and then this is just the cherry on top is you also lose some XP. Uh, but like the reason I do this, I don't want people to want to die because like I don't want people to just like the alternative is people just don't lose any XP from dying and they just go exactly to where they were, which just means there's no real consequence, which means people will just act as though there's no consequence and just run into combats willy nilly and so be it if I die, whatever, just keep moving on. Um, and the other thing, so retirement. I also had rules for this. I've decided to change that. So retirement, I definitely want characters to feel like it is an option. Like if someone wants to retire and like if they think for whatever reason this character just doesn't fit anymore or if they think that like they're not having fun with their character anymore and they want to make a new one, it should just be an option available to people to like retire and start a new character. And I don't necessarily want to punish someone who retires, but I don't really want to reward it either because I don't want to end up in a situation where people play a character. Like I've been in campaigns where this has happened, and like people just play a character for 2 sessions. They're like, I'm not feeling a new character. Play them for 2 sessions. Like I'm bored of them. A new character, like play 2 sessions, and it's just you're never ever ever going to like get attached or like care about the character if you're constantly just dropping them for someone new. Um, so what I've decided here is you'll lose an amount of XP equal to your level, so it won't be as bad as dying, but you're definitely not gonna want to just like constantly be doing this. Like there will be a penalty. Like you're effectively going to lose like probably like 1 session's worth of XP, but you will gain a magic item. I think like this will have to be like a we work together to create the magic item kind of thing, but it won't be like a I give you a random magic item. It'll be like you say like I am building this kind of character with this thing going on, and I want like a magic item that specifically helps me with this build I'm going for, and we'll build that or create that magic item for you, and its attunement will be equal to your level divided by 2. So it'll always be a reasonably powerful magic item for your level, like probably like an above average magic item for your current character's level. So we'll see if this ever comes up. If people think that this is like unfair, then maybe I'll rework this. But I think it'll be okay. The other thing that you don't want to end up doing is if you give people bonus starting stuff for creating a higher level character, you don't want someone just creating a bunch, like getting to level 10 and then just creating a new character every single week because they know they get to start with 5,000 gold and a magic item, and then just because that's the other problem with like death and characters is that like when someone dies and if the other players have the chance to loot their body and like just take all their stuff and all their items, then like things can start to accumulate quickly. Not that I think people would like go out of their way to do that, but even if it was a thing that like incidentally happened, it's something I want to avoid. Okay, so yeah, the feature for level 1, I definitely want to add that. The monsters, um, I've been thinking about the like legendary actions. Not entirely sure exactly how I want to sort of implement that quite yet. I'm thinking more so it might just be based on the like encounter CR, like anywhere from 1/8 to 20 effectively determines what like a given monster can sort of do during the player's turns. Because otherwise, yeah, I do plan on like a lot of the abilities and options and stuff that the players have are just not going to be things that the monsters have, but they will in turn have these like lair and legendary things they can do. The lairs, I think I'm going to like change that for just like to be a reflection of you are fighting on the enemy's turf rather than they are fighting on your turf. And I think I might even create like a player sort of equivalent for layer actions when they are like defending their place, you know, like getting their home field advantage, which I don't think is going to be like. I think more often than not they're going to be the ones running out and fighting other people's in their homes. But I think it'll be fun to give the players the occasional like you get these actions as or every initiative 20 you get this sort of assistance, which again really lets you ramp up the challenge because now the players have a whole other bonus on their side. But the players do just already have like a lot of stuff to keep track of in general. I don't, like more often than not, I don't think they need a whole other thing to keep track of every single combat. I've decided for monsters, I know how I'm going to create my bestiary. So from like CR 1/8 to like CR 10, I will create a stat block for each 5 of these general roles, these archetypes. So that does mean there's going to be like 5 times 12, so 60 stat blocks to make, which that might take a while. I might just sort of create them like as I need them, and then hopefully the list will fill up after a while. But these like 5 roles are going to exist for any given challenge rating. Skirmisher, this is your rogue type. This is going to be your squishy high DPS. They're running around all the time. They're like far range. They're shooting you from far away and dealing a lot of damage. And then the soldier is just going to be like the mid guy. He can do everything, but he doesn't do everything well. He just sort of covers all the bases, and he's flexible and versatile. So like, if the skirmisher dies, he can sort of like sit in the back with his bow and arrow and shoot people. He's not going to be doing as much damage, but he can do it. If the tank dies, he can run up to the front with his sword and shield, and like he's not going to be very tanky, but he'll be okay at it. So the guardian, this is going to be the tank. This will likely just anyone that wears like heavy armor and that would have the deflection rating will likely now just become whatever the guardian of that CR will be. So this guy, yeah, he's going to be the tanky guy, and he's going to be really slow, but he's not going to be very easy to move, and he's going to have like a area around him that he really threatens as a means to try to like he's going to try to like prevent the players from moving around. He's going to try to like keep them in one place and take all that damage. There'll be like a support. This might be like priests or leaders of some extent that provide buffs to all their allies and heal them. So these guys are obviously in combat's going to be the ones you want to take out first. And then the controller. The controller will likely be like the mage, the wizard type that performs like crowd control and like keeps the players exactly where he wants them. He's gonna like force the players to move, and he's gonna use AOE stuff to force them to disperse when they all get together and gang up. And then when they're all spread out, he's gonna try to use magic to get them all close to the tank and to like force them to fight that guy. So if you're like familiar with MMOs or whatever kind of game, like these are very recognizable. These are taken from 4E, which got a lot of flack for being the MMO equivalent version of D&D. But I think the roles for the monsters, that was one of the good ideas, I think, because I think it's going to just naturally lead to more interesting combat. Because I've fallen into this trap of, like, again, following the general age-old D&D advice. Like, you set the players up for a combat. They're in the forest fighting a bunch of bandits. You create the tie to the story. The plot element is that there's like a princess that the bandits kidnapped that they need to save, and then there is a like a timer. Like the princess is maybe like tied up and is gonna be lowered into like a pit of wolves. So the players have like an objective in this combat they need to complete, and then there's like hills and trees and a river maybe, so that there's like an environment that the players can try to use to their advantage. Then you like start the combat, and like every single time it always just evolves into, all right guys, let's crack our knuckles and let's target these bandits one by one until they all get to 0 health, which is just it's not like you can have all that other stuff going on with the environment and with the objectives, but if the enemies are just boring, like the fight is gonna be straightforward at the very least. It's not gonna involve a lot of real tactical decisions and stuff. But like with this system, if instead of just 8 basic bandits, you've got like the skirmisher Robin Hood hunter type running around with his bow and arrow with poisoned arrows or whatever, dealing a bunch of damage every time he hits. And then you have like a couple of mooks, a couple of goons being the soldiers that can continue to just be your regular bandits that are just there to die, and there's just there to get killed so that players can feel good about killing a bunch of enemies at once. Then you've got the big fat bandit that wears heavy armor and uses a barrel lid shield that gets up next to the players like DPS and soaks all their damage. Then you've got the outcast monk who is running around healing all the bandits as they get hit. And then, you got the sorcerer bandit who was born with some magic and kicked out of his town and now flinging fireballs at the players. That is just instantly yeah, even if we get rid of like the princess and the hills and the river and all of that, and we just have this combat encounter with all these wildly different roles that all complement each other, I think that is like a way more interesting situation to be in. At least, at the very least, tactically, because now the players have to come up with a plan. If they all just continue to do what they were doing before and just walking forward and hitting the closest guy until they die, like all the players are gonna die. They're gonna lose if they do that. They will have to come up with a plan. They will have to say like, so and so, you've got to target their support. You've got to kill their healing monk before he just before we just die to attrition here. And rogue guy, you have got to like sneak around and kill that mage, because if he throws another fireball at us, we are all dead. I just think, yeah. Which, will it get a little samey? I don't know. I think there is going to be a lot of different combinations I could create of like, maybe there's a bunch of low CR skirmishers and like a couple of high CR of just the other things, or vice versa. Maybe there's like multiple tanks they have to deal with, and then just like a couple of some kind of like skirmisher DPS thing in the background. I think there's a lot of different combinations to work with here, and I've decided that like I'm going to also to create like, or to be able to run kobolds and goblins and bugbears and all the different types of things of monsters. There's just going to be like a tag, and like the tag will say, a tag might be like kobold, and a kobold, you just has the traits like pack tactics, sunlight sensitivity, and dark vision. And then you can just throw that on any of these rolls. If I, let's say I need like a kobold champion, and the players are like, just they decide to fight this guy that I had never even come up with stats for, and just on the fly I have to realize like, oh god, I need to figure out what kind of stat block to use for this kobold champion that they decided to just fight right now. Before, I would just kind of have to like look at the available monsters in the monster manual and just think to myself like, I don't know, an elite drow warrior is kind of the close enough CR, and they both happen to be dex fighters. Like, good enough, it'll have to run. But now I can, like, in a moment, or once I create the system, I can, like, in a moment, okay, the Kobold Champion, there's going to be a CR7 soldier with the Kobold tag and the Knight tag. Um, and also, if I ever want to create an undead kobold mage, I can do a CR2 controller with the tags kobold and tag undead and tag necromancer. I can just like instantly create whatever monster I need for any situation. Um, so, what about things like dragons or whatever, owl bears? How does that fit in? Well, I think generally just big scary monsters are probably going to be the guardian, the tank type. Dragon is just going to be like a really powerful tag to be applied to something, because it's going to just gain flying, and it's going to gain a breath attack and likely resistance to whatever color it is. But not necessarily all monsters will be that. Like, I'm sure there will be sneaky demon types that'll be skirmishers, that are just like high DPS types. But yeah, so the monster system, haven't entirely written it out yet, but I've got high hopes for it. Okay, siege weapons. Yeah, I still decided I do want to go in the direction of building the castle rules, and the rules for how much health it has and how much damage your cannons and catapults are gonna do and all that. I think that'll be fun. Okay, Clocks. I've decided they are going to become the clocks from the Blades in the Dark, the progress clocks. They are going to become a like built-in important part of my system. So something I forgot to talk about. I made a whole video where I was discussing the progress clocks, and I forgot like to mention the one of the like main attribute, the main like benefit that they bring is that idea of failing forward. Like when you create the clock, if the players don't succeed it, there is a very clear and direct thing that happens when they fail. You know, the story is going to move forward if they fail. They don't just fail it and then we sit there and try to come up with like, well, that didn't work. What do you guys want to do next? Like, no, there will be a very clear continuation of them attempting whatever it is that they were trying to do, and then if it doesn't go that way, like, oh, there is now a new problem you guys have to solve. This is like just the like infinite plot generator. It just never stops going. There's just like always stuff to do. So I really like the idea of the clocks, and I want to standardize that. I want to formalize it. I want to make sure all the language is the same and correct for when I like implement it into my system. Okay, so new features from levels pace. Oh, right. Okay, so I've decided I'm going to like pretty much rework the whole leveling system, and like it's going to be mostly pretty much the same, but I'm going to move around some specific stuff. So class level 1, you used to just get your class feature. Now you're going to get both a general feature and a class feature. Okay, level 2, you are going to get another class feature. I will explain what this giant bonus action in quotation marks means later. Level 3, I previously had you choose from either a skill or a strain. I decided now when you reach the level 3 ones, you are just going to get both. And you also, I've decided, taking away the associated ability score increase from general features. I think general features, I am gonna take a note from 3.5 and just add a requirement to them instead. Because previously I had like, oh, well, when you take this sort of mage related feature, you get a +1 to your intelligence. Which means you could have like an intelligence of 6, take the mage feature, and bumps up to 7, which is going to be my sort of half-in, stand-in method of being able to like kind of guide you towards a playstyle without like forcing you to have certain stats to take certain features. But I've realized that will lead to like some extreme more wonkiness than I was ready for, especially when like you take a feature that in its description effectively requires you to have a certain stat. Like if this feature, the amount of times you can use it is based off of your intelligence modifier, and then if you just have an intelligence modifier of 0, you could technically still take that feature. It's more complicated than what I want, and it's also like people will be able to read the features, and then right now there's just like a list of like 100 of them, and then you just have no idea what direction to go in at all. Like at least there will be a guide of like, okay, all these features have a minimum requirement of 13 in this stat, so you can know like, okay, so like since I have a 13 in dex and a 13 in wisdom, these are the features I should generally be looking towards and choosing between. So yeah, I think I'm going to go towards that. And then this, now when you get your skill and your strain, this will also be when you get your ability score increase. And I do think I'm going to do ability score increase of 1 so that I can give them out more frequently. Okay, and then your BDB, I've reworked base damage dice or base damage bonuses. Now you will just be getting them on a set like stream. It's not going to be a choose between base damage and choose between ability uses. It's just going to be like a set thing. Okay, so then you get your general feature, and then this repeats and repeats and repeats until level. Also, okay, well, level 5 and level 11, you're both going to get the bump up in proficiency bonus, which does make them like somewhat even more of like particularly big humps in like moving from one level to the next level. I will say like 5e with multi attack. Like level 5 is insane compared to like level 4 because your damage effectively doubles from level 4 to level 5, which makes like playing with a level 4 character in the same party as a level 5 character just feel really kind of bad. So there's still definitely is like a bit of a jump to level 5 and what you're going to be getting, but it's not going to be nearly as egregious as 5e. Okay, so another thing, now that you're going to be getting skills just from leveling up, I feel fine with scrapping the skill from the background. I've also decided now when you gain all your skills, either during character creation or from leveling up, instead of learning a new skill, you can just give yourself expertise in one of your other skills that you are already proficient in. So I do hope that will more so like have, well, I do think I like the idea of people being more of like specialists in specific fields rather than like everyone being basically proficient in like every skill. But I've got like a real problem with expertise, and that is like it doesn't take very long for the bard to end up with a plus 21 to persuasion. And on the one hand, like, cool, good, like, you're a bard, you should be good at persuasion, like, that is your thing. But with a plus 21, there's no, like, even need to roll at that point. Especially when you get that ability where it's like, all right, now the worst I can get on any check is a 10. Like, I can't roll lower than a 10 on persuasion. Now your minimum is like a 31. Already the like highest default DC, a task that is deemed nearly impossible, is DC 30. So that is just your default, which means like there can't even really ever even be any sort of situations where the like conflict or the question is, do you successfully convince this person of this thing? Because like, yes, every single time, if it is possible for you to convince someone of it, you do it. Which again, maybe you like, obviously you got to do let people know that there's the whole, you can't just ask the king for his kingdom and then roll a nat 20 on the persuasion check and then say like, all right, you give it to me. That's not how it works. You can only succeed things that the play or that the DM deems as like succeedable. But now you're getting into a whole like, okay, well, what if I already know I can't fail a persuasion check, so like I'll just ask the king for 50 gold. That seems like it might be a nearly impossible thing to just convince a king of, but it doesn't seem impossible. It doesn't seem out of the realm of like it could ever occur. It seems like a 1 in a million chance, but that's what I do. I just automatically pass 1 in a million chances. And then you just death by 1,000 cuts drain the king dry of his entire coffers by asking him for 50 gold every day, which I get very much so like a hyperbole of that situation. but I do think it like shows the point that I'm like trying to make of like once bonuses get too high, then the game just sort of starts to break and fall apart. So, expertise, just instead of doubling your proficiency and getting an additional +5 on your everything, I think I'm just going to say expertise, just a +2, no matter what your proficiency bonus is. So, I do think generally for players, you're like better off specializing anyway so that you aren't the because just assuming that everyone else has a bunch of skills that they happen to be proficient with just means that like any skill there's just a very good chance that it is covered by someone in the group. um, so by going with expertise you can start making things like your thing when this skill problem comes up, like you get to be the one that rolls for it. um, So I don't think this is going to make expertise like so weak that people aren't even going to want to bother with it. I do think people will still want expertise, but it's not just going to lead to the like challenges and things no longer being a possible like question or like worthy of drama or conflict just because bonuses are so high that you can't fail. So anyway, another thing I was thinking about it that could be a possible solution or an additional sort of help towards this like coming to light is just saying like there is a cap of +15. Like no matter your combinations of bonuses, like you are a mortal person. You cannot like it is impossible to end up in any sort of situation where you cannot physically fail tests or checks. Like you you cannot just regularly and without any effort achieve the impossible. Like that, you know, like there's got to be like a line drawn somewhere. So I think +15. I don't think anyone is anywhere like close to it, and you know you'd really have to like work hard to get to a +15. But I don't want to encourage the practice of people creating feature combinations and abusing magic items to get up to like a plus higher than that, and just making it impossible to like fail anymore. And then I'm thinking like, you know what, but as like a you know, like to make reaching level 20 a special thing, I think the like level 20 feature is just gonna be, well, maybe not just be this, but some additional part of reaching level 20 will be okay, this cap of +15 is gone. Like you can just get you you can get a +20 in all your skill checks. You are now the equivalent of like a god on earth. You can regularly achieve the impossible without any effort. It just like congratulations, like the game is over. You've beat D&D. Like you can now make a new character. Like you've reached the pinnacle of what a being is capable of achieving. um okay, so yeah, I think I'll see how stuff like this turns out and whether or not there's any sort of actual need to cap people at +15. But I guess if I am going to do that, I should probably say that before people start reaching that point. Which again, I don't think it's like you definitely would have to go out of your way in order to try to like break the game in order to get past a +15. So I don't think for all the people and players playing regularly that this is going to make any sort of difference at all. It's just a my lazy way of trying to prevent the Munchkin build. Okay, so star sign. I think I'm going to change this instead of you just roll a random star sign and then get a random bonus to one of your ability scores. Now you will choose the ability score you want and then just roll between the two. Which on the one hand, hey, like, you're going to, it'll make the star sign thing more of a thing that you can relate to other people about, and like, oh hey, you also happen to be slightly better at this thing. So yeah, I think, because otherwise making it just random, it was the only thing in the entire like part of both character creation and like the building of a character to any degree that's just there's this one element that is entirely up to chance, and then it can ruin your otherwise perfect character build, because you didn't get the +1 in the stat where you wanted it. Okay. So I've decided base damage bonus. I am going to just get rid of it, and I'm going to replace it with an individual base damage bonus die to each class specifically. So, oh god, all this stuff got moved over. Okay, so fighter, I realized they just really did not have much of anything going for them, at least compared to everyone else. So I decided, you know what, they just get their base damage bonus die before everyone else, and they just get a bigger die than everyone else. They are the consistent guy that just deals a lot of damage. Also, I do think just instead of reaching from +1 to +3, this gives you a bit more damage. So you do. I do think it's important to have this damage thing going up, so that when you are leveling up, you do feel like you notice your character getting more powerful. And the die, I just think, is also maybe just a little bit more fun than getting to the point where just I would be telling fighters you have an additional +6 to damage, which might make the roll on their die feel inconsequential when the majority of your damage at this point is just coming from bonuses. And also features that do interact with damage rolls. Also the combat training will now scale up as you get into a higher level. So yeah, fighters, they just get this damage was. Yeah, so I'll talk about that later. So ranger, barbarian. Well, barbarian gets rage, so they already have a consistent +2, and then eventually even more damage from that. So I don't think they need even more extra bonus damage. The ranger just has their companion, their animal companion, so they don't really need a free extra damage. But barbarian and ranger are both more martially classes that should fill in the role of outputting a lot of damage. Then monk, I decided, so this isn't going to be the bonus, this is just going to be the dice that they roll. This will just be their unarmed damage. So 1d6 with the main attack, then 1d4 with the offhand at level 1. Then at level 12 they get 1d10, 1d10. So this way, instead of them being entirely the same until they reach level 7, where they bump up to d8s, now they just slowly move up all the way down. Bards and cultist, these are to some extent, they have a little bit of a martial thing going on, but it's very much so not their main feature. It is very much so the tertiary thing that they've got going on in their system is that they're good fighters. So they don't get it until much later, but they do eventually get something to help them keep up with the damage output of the other classes at higher levels. Then magic user, he doesn't get a base damage bonus because he is... Well, I was considering making this a thing for their cantrips, because otherwise cantrips will just really suck from the day. at some higher level, like cantrips are just really, really going to be kind of dookie if they just continue to be 1d10 for your entire life. But on the other hand, the magic user is like the only guy that like scales like highly with their spells. So you know what? I think magic users their downside is they're just gonna have to suffer through a really wimpy basic attack, and then when they cast spells, they just like blow everyone else away. And rogue, they already have their sneak attack that is constantly getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so they don't need an additional extra free damage thing. Um, so exploding dice, the favorite weapon, the signature weapon, I've realized there's not really any other feature in the game that just says like from now on you just do more damage. Like when you attack, you just hit for more. Um, which like I was slightly more okay with it with the rogue because like all right, you know, you're using the rapier, you get this bonus, but when you use the crossbow, you don't get the bonus. Um, you know, so it did make it feel like this is your signature weapon. That having been said, for the monk, they're just unarmed, so that's like all they're always ever attacking with. So they just always get it. That having been said, I do with the rogue, it's been kind of just absurd getting the exploding dice on your sneak attack and then just sneak attacking for like 50 damage and just totally just um, like totally outclassing everyone else's damage. So I definitely think I need to either greatly change or get rid of the signature weapon. But I did like how for the monk, because I was trying to get rid of multi attack because I'll talk about why I don't like multi attack, but but I still like I wanted the monk's thing to be they get lots of wha cha 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 chas. They just get lots of small attacks. Like that's the monk's thing. But I didn't know how to capture that the uh, without the like just giving them 5 attacks or whatever. But I think just making exploding dice a specific monk thing will sort of lend to that feeling of like roll, look at the result, roll, look at the result, roll, look at the result, to give that sort of like wha cha 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 feeling. Um, what I'm going to change though is that it's not going to be exploding dice. This will be a slightly modified version called cascading dice. So you'll roll a d8, and then if you get an 8 on that d8, you then roll a d6. And then if you get a 6 on that d6, then you roll a d4. And if you get a 4 on that d4, then you just stop there. But you add all this together, and that becomes your new damage, which I think will lend to that sort of like lots of small little things happening when you play the monk. Even though it's all just one big damage roll for an attack, I think that like physical motion of rolling one at a time and then adding them up will lend itself to that more monk type style. Um, okay. So, okay, nat ones. They are generally pretty bad. Okay, actually, no. All right. So, multi attack. Why I don't like it? Because I think it very much so disrupts the so hard to achieve rhythm of combat. Like when I play really any role playing game, but especially a combat focused role playing game like D&D, I as the DM really want to try to keep this movement of okay, you tell me what you want to do. Okay, roll this die. Okay, I tell you the result. Next person. Tell me your action. Roll this die. Here's the result. Next person. Tell me your action. Roll this die. I'll tell you the result. And then next person. Which generally, when you tell people, okay, you can do one thing on your turn, that like is generally more so the case. It's not like you get in a lot less of these situations, when people are just like, I charge, and then I'm like, okay, roll this, and then this happens. Next person, I want to shoot him with my bow, roll it. And I really like trying to keep that rhythm, which on the one hand, like when you miss, when your turn gets wasted, or whenever anything like bad happens that makes you have a feels bad moment on your turn, when we've got the good rhythm going, it's only gonna be a minute, maybe 2 minutes until your next turn, and you get to have another go. In 5e with multi-attack, turns just start becoming this like branching out giant flow chart of if, ands, buts, this, that. Like, you run up to the goblin. All right, I hit him with my sword. Okay, so since I killed him, then I'm going to use my second attack to shoot this guy with my bow. And if I hit, then okay, so now I can run over here and then hit this guy. Well, wait, so the bow, that means he triggers this like debuff from my magic item. So maybe I want to use my third attack to also use my bow to get this on the other goblin. Okay, so that's all my attacks for the turn. Now for my bonus action. So if I use this shield bash on this guy, will that make it so that this, that, the, and just I've experienced firsthand the what I call the turn bloat from in 5e at the beginning, up until level 5, things are snappy, they're fast, it feels pretty good to be in combat, and it's fun, and I feel like it's got a pretty good proper rhythm. And then once everyone unlocks a million features and a million attacks on their turn, and everyone just starts taking 5-minute turns, and it's the worst, especially if during a combat you take your action or you do whatever it is and you either fail or you spend the whole turn running into the combat and that's your turn. You've got to now wait 20 minutes for it to come back to your turn again, and that is just too much. That is just when it happens, it's just the absolute worst, having to wait such a long time before it's your turn again. And so that multi-attack thing, that's also the reason why I decided to take out bonus actions as well, because they just added to that problem of people taking their turn and then trying to especially every single turn then becomes answered or ended with the DM saying okay, so is that it for your turn, or do you want to take any bonus actions? And then it leads to the player looking around on their character sheet. They're so can I do this or that, or just I just and it's not, you can't just start skipping people's turns just when they do their action to say okay, next person, because inevitably you're gonna have multiple people say wait, I still want to do my bonus action, let me do this, that. And it's just, there's no way it ever just it just doesn't move smoothly. So I'm a very, very strong proponent of the just one action on your turn. You tell me the one thing you want to do, and then we resolve it and then move to the next person. If there is going to be a massive flow chart of combat of if this, then I'll do that, but if this happens, then I'll do this, I want that to come out as of a synthesis between all the different players and their characters and the things that they are doing. And the question should be if on Jim's turn he kills this goblin, and then if on Bob's turn he casts the armor of Hadar, then, and if all those succeed, then on my turn I'll use my throwing axe on the elf wizard. So like that's fine when all the like questions you're being asked on like what am I going to do on my turn is all being answered during other people taking their turns. Um, yeah, rather than like having to ask yourself in the middle of your turn, like, oh, okay, so since I hit with this ability, would it be better for me to use my next action on this or that? Yeah, so I want to get rid of all of that. But bonus actions I have found did serve something of a purpose in that when on your turn you do your thing, you attack and you miss, and it's like, okay, well, I guess nothing happens. I guess I do nothing on my turn. Um, at least with your bonus action, you can be like, all right, well, at least I can throw out a healing word. At least I can throw out a shield of faith. Like, at least my turn didn't mean literal nothing. It's not like my turn might as well just not have occurred. I at least get some tiny little something out of my turn. And I've realized, like, okay, well, I can combine this into just a single action, just a single question on your turn. So, um, for your class, like now, when you just miss on your turn, when you just don't do anything on your turn, when you don't succeed a single check, your class feature at level 2 is going to say, like, okay, when you fail to do anything on your turn, you get this bonus. Which obviously the bonus will never be as good as dealing a bunch of damage to an enemy and possibly killing them, but it'll at least be something. It'll be something you can do. So the like bard, well, this I kind of already had built into the game because I just kind of said once on your turn as a free action you can use a bardic inspiration. So I think I'm just gonna kind of keep that, and then just, the bard. That's the bard's thing, is they always get to bardic inspiration. Which another thing I was kind of thinking about and realizing with the bard is that, like in good old 5e, you gotta give people the die, the bardic inspiration die, and then if on their turn or at some point during the combat, if they happen to need it, or if they think they should use it on this, then they can like expend it and then roll the die and add that bonus. And I've realized, like with my bardic inspiration thing, where it's basically a reaction where if someone fails a roll, you can add a bardic inspiration die to it. It's honestly like pretty good. Like it's quite powerful just being able to tell people like over the course of a combat you can just turn multiple misses into hits, and you never risk like wasting a bardic inspiration die. So I've thought about maybe changing that back. I don't know exactly what I want to do about it because I like, on the other hand, in the way that it's working now, like the bard certainly does fill their role as the support guy that helps everyone else make their attacks. So I don't know. I've been thinking about what I want to do for that. Okay, so barbarian, I'm thinking like if on your turn you miss with your attack, maybe you just get to make a little free shove or a little free grapple. The cultist, the like cleric, when you like miss with an attack on your turn, then you can get to shield of faith someone, or maybe only yourself, and just either like protect someone or give yourself +2 AC. Do the old support thing where you try to protect other people. Fighter, I think this will like enable them to get in like a counter attack on their turn, or like as a reaction. So kind of like the battle master superiority die thing, where like when someone misses you, you get to counterattack on them. So this kind of just gives the fighter like a second chance to hit people. Um, so the magic user, I think, like drink a potion. Magic users already, they've got a lot going for them. They've already, they're already casting fireballs and doing way more damage than everyone else. I don't think drink a potion is going to come up particularly often, but I do think it will. Um, I do think it fits their class identity pretty well as the, magic related guy. Maybe possibly also they get to like throw a potion instead of just drink it, which that will greatly change. Like, we'll see. It's been a long while since I've had the magic user in the session, so we'll see if that becomes necessary or not. The monk, they also, I've kind of just given them their bonus action for free. They normally have to spend it making their unarmed attack. So I don't think I'm going to change that. I think they'll just not get one of these. And then Ranger, they normally have to spend their bonus action to command their animal companion to attack. Again, I made that just like a free action. So I don't think they necessarily need a bonus action to make up for that. And then Rogue, I think this will be how I sort of implement the cunning action. When you're the rogue and when you miss, then you get to either dash, you get to hide, or you get to disengage. Especially with like the ranged rogue, I haven't really known how I want to run them. Because on the one hand, if you are like yeah, like if the range sneak attack just is based on is there anyone next to your target, then you basically always have range attack, or you basically always have sneak attack. There's like never a time where you're ever not sneak attacking if all you need is like one of your allies next to the target. But on the other hand, if it's like you can only ever get the sneak attack bonus when you have advantage, well, sheesh, like that becomes insanely difficult to like ever get your sneak attack. It's like you'll be lucky if you get that once in a single combat. Um, but I think if Rogue is on their turn like missing, and then they can hide, and then they can next turn get advantage, and then get that sneak attack with their ranged weapon. So I think that'll work out pretty well if I do keep it to the if I implement this and then keep it to the like you need to have advantage to get your sneak attack with the ranged weapon, because at least then you'll like always either just be like hiding every other turn, so you'll like always just be getting your sneak attack like every other turn, which I think is like pretty much where I want sneak attack. I don't. It's not a thing I want you getting every single turn, but it's not a thing I only want you getting once a combat. Like every other turn would be like perfect. Um, okay. So coming up in the pipeline, I do think the kingdom building. I want the rules for that. I think I'm literally just going to steal like Kingmaker rules. I don't think I'm gonna like come up with my own whole system. I'm just gonna take a system that already exists and then hack it into Storm the Castle. But yeah, I do. That one is in the back of the mind. So yeah, again, I'm still working on that first update. I'm still working on the downtime. I haven't gotten past that yet. I've just been having a lot of ideas for things that I want to add to the system, and I do think, like especially once I introduce all the most numbers, yeah. Once I get this into the system, then pretty much everyone is gonna have to like remake their characters, and you're not gonna like lose anything. It's not like you're not gonna like remake it and then like have your character be worse. The only like you might, if you're low level, you might lose one skill. That is like the only thing I can possibly like think of that you could lose. Um, yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I think you would keep everything else that you'd gained so far. So yeah, I don't think literally anyone would lose anything from the system. But I do want to um yeah, I do want to implement this, and I do think everyone is sort of gonna have to create, not like create a new character, but just like recreate their character following this procedure and guideline. Um, yeah, I've been having a lot of fun working on this stuff. So yeah, expect this to come out sometime soon.